Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is the Simple Handmade Everyday Podcast, where I talk about living a creative, intentional life. I like to chat about quilting, sometimes knitting, what I'm reading and watching, and a little bit about self-care, productivity, and keeping a cozy, organized home. I've got my cup of tea in hand, so grab yours and let's settle in for a chat. This is episode 84. Hello, friends. It's great to be back. How are you? Have you got a lovely beverage in hand? I have some wonderful tea, and it's a bit of a treat that I'm having this on during the day because I've been cutting down a bit on caffeine, but I've got some Harney & Sons Jasmine Dragon Pearl tea, and it was part of this great set. I had a birthday last week, and one of my kids, my middle son Jonah, he sent a gift box of Harney & Sons tea. I'm going to look up what it's called because I wanted to tell you. I will obviously put a link in the show notes, but it's called the Harney & Sons Gray Linen Tea Chest. And it's this, it almost looks like it's a board game. It's like that big of a box, and it's gray linen. You open it up and it's got all these tea bags, and it's the loose leaf tea bags. So they're really high quality, and it's just got a whole selection of tea in there. And I've already finished one type, and that is the orange ginger turmeric tea, which is caffeine free, and turmeric's really good for you, and ginger is good for I've been fighting some acid reflux, and it is so delicious. I was a little bit skeptical but I love it. So I'll put a link in the show notes. If you have a tea lover in your life, I mean, this was so impressive to open up, so that was very, very fun. But today I'm drinking what is one of my favorite, which is the Jasmine Dragon Pearls. And it's a lovely tea. So a couple of other things that I got for my birthday, the two other kids went in together and got me this book that I have talked about before. I recently got obsessed with the Nancy Meyer style of decorating, and I read an article where she is inspired by this book by Gil Schaefer III, and it's called A Place to Call Home. What a great name for a book. It's got a beautiful, I would just like to step into the picture that's on the cover. It is, he's an architect, and he has written several books, and he just has this incredible sense of space, and I'm just reading it in little bits. It's basically like a coffee table book. It's gorgeous. I have it sitting out so I can just pick it up and be inspired by the photos or by any, just little section of it. I've just learned a lot about how he even places a house on a property when he's designing for a specific thing. It's a great book, and just has that great Nancy Meyer style, which is a lot of natural elements, natural wood, bringing the outdoors in with plants and like twigs, a lot of contrasting textures, like bamboo or rattan shades, and wooden bowls up against, more slick textures like something porcelain, and then some driftwood and candles, just things, the whole vibe I just absolutely love. So that was really fun too. And then my other gift was a new pair of AirPods. I got a pair of AirPods 2 years ago when the pandemic started, and I have absolutely loved them. I usually only wear one at a time, and after 2 years, I lost one. I think it was in my pocket when I went to Lowe's, and I think it probably came out when I pulled the key out of my pocket or something. So I'm going to be very careful with these. I upgraded a little to the Generation 3s, and they are amazing. They connect really well. They have great sound, great noise canceling. The shape of Apple earbuds really fits my ears, so I love them. These are a little bit bigger, so the old ones didn't fall out, but these ones really won't fall out. And I kind of have little ears, so they're not too big, but I am just loving having those back again because I was really, really missing those. But I buried the lead here. The newest thing that's going on around here is that we got a second dog. If you've been around for a while, you might know that our beloved dog Teddy, that we had for like 14 years, died last summer. And I thought we would go, I wasn't even sure we'd ever get another pet again. But we missed having a pet around the house. I don't know if you could just hear that, but he was just barking in the background. And so now he is in the crate while I record this. We just really missed having a dog. So we got our dog Bailey in November, and she was a little anxious, very shy dog then, and she's really come out of her shell. But she's also just a little bit lazy. When we got our first dog, there were 5 people, a dog and 2 cats in the house. So we thought about getting a second dog as a playmate for Teddy at the time, but it's like I was at max capacity. And now it's just my husband and I and our little dog Bailey. And we thought, you know what? It would be fun for her to have a playmate, to be a little more active during the day. So we found another little terrier mix. They look like they could be brother and sister. He's just a little bit smaller and a little bit darker. The jury's out on his name. We have tried a million things. It might be Buddy. It might be Buster. But we have different kids who object to both those names. So I don't know. I personally think it should be like Scrappy or something like that. Or Sparky. But my husband likes human names for dogs. Anyways, he has been so much fun, but he is a lot. He's younger, not a puppy, but definitely has a lot of puppy behavior. So he is just kind of go all day long. And I think to the point where even little Bailey gets a little sick of him. So we just got to crate him every once in a while. But they are adorable when they play. They chase each other around the backyard. We call it puppy racetrack. They get so much exercise and they just tussle and kind of play fight all the time, and that's very cute until you want it to stop because you have to work. So anyways, he's learning, it's getting better, and yeah, so he's been a great addition. My 2 boys are coming home for the weekend tomorrow, and I cannot wait for them to meet him. They're going to have so much fun because he's definitely the kind of dog that you can roughhouse with, and little Bailey here is not one that will roughhouse with you so much. Won't roughhouse with a person, but she will roughhouse with a dog. So anyways, so things have been just a little bit crazy. It's a little bit like having a toddler. You kind of have to, like right now he's in a timeout. He needs to be saved from himself occasionally. Just like, it's time to settle down. There is a mess of dog toys absolutely everywhere. And they need like their outside time. So it's just every time I'm sitting out there watching them play, I'm just like, this is like having little kids where I would just go, it's time for us to be outside. You guys need to run this off for a while. So anyways, that has been really fun and just a nice addition to our family. The last thing in this, big catch-up intro that I want to tell you is here in our town of Moore Park, California, we got in our county the first Amazon Fresh store. Have you guys seen these? It is so crazy. So you go in, you bring up an Amazon app. There are other ways to do it where you don't have to have the Amazon app, but that's the easiest way. And there's a little QR code that you scan as you walk in. You can bring bags in or a cart. If you have a cart, you can just bag as you go. Just shop, and then scan your phone and just walk out. I didn't even think there were checkers, like a little check stand, but actually there are. I just missed it the first time. But it's crazy and it's very accurate. I had this whole situation. I went a second time with my friend and I wanted to return something because I bought the wrong kind of tea. They didn't want it back. Let me just tell you that. If you buy anything on Amazon you don't want, you just got to return it on the app and they're just like, keep it. We never want it back. But I thought they would charge me again because I brought it in. I was showing the checker like, I don't want this. And she said, well, let me show you how to return it. And I'm like, is it going to charge me again? And it didn't. So somehow it knew. And this is how it knows. There are cameras everywhere. This kind of creeped me out once I realized how they did this. There are literally, there have to be thousands of cameras hanging from the ceiling, basically just watching what you do. And you don't have to even keep it out in plain sight. You pick something off the shelf and put it in a bag and it will count it. It was crazy. So where it is it will never become my normal grocery store, I don't think. I love Trader Joe's. I love supporting Trader Joe's. And then a more conventional grocery store is right behind my house. So if I just need something quickly, that's where I'll go. But it was quite, like the parlor trick to go to Amazon Fresh. So if you have one opening near you, just check it out for the fun of it. Thank you to Fat Quarter Shop for sponsoring the podcast. What I want to tell you about today is that in honor of Worldwide Quilting Day, which is Saturday, March 18th, the Fat Quarter Shop is hosting a fun layer cake lotto challenge. They'll release the details about the challenge on their YouTube channel and on their blog, which is called The Jolly Jabber. But the broad strokes of it is that you have to make a quilt with the fabulous pre-cut known as the layer cake, which, as you probably know, is a 10-inch square. So if you need some inspiration, I'll link to a video where Kimberly Jolly, the owner of that quarter shop, makes a layer cake quilt in one day. It's really fun to watch because she does things a little bit differently. She has this method of starching her fabrics and ironing them before she starts cutting. Which is why I'm sure her quilts come out so perfectly precise and fabulous. But definitely check that out. Another project that you might consider and is on my bucket list, and I don't know why I've never made it, is called the Moda Love Quilt. And it's a free pattern by Moda, and it takes one layer cake, and which makes, I'm going to guess here, I haven't checked it recently, somewhere around a 48-inch square quilt, I believe. And if you have a charm pack, you can make the exact same quilt with a charm pack because, they're a 5-inch square versus a 10-inch square. So you can make a smaller wall hanging if something like that's too big. Wouldn't count for the layer cake lotto though. But someday I'm going to make the Moda Love quilt. But I ordered my layer cake and I picked the new French General line. I love French General. That was the first quilt I ever made, was a French General line, and it's called La Vie Bohème, and it's blues and reds and off-whites, just, of course it is. That's the vibe of French General. I cannot wait for it to arrive. What I'm going to make is a tabletopper project. And I'm using a pattern, but it's perfect for a layer cake because it calls for 2.5 by 10-inch strips. So you just cut, a 10-inch square into 4 2.5-inch strips, and there you go. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be revealing that later. But yeah, it seems very fun. So again, pop over to the Fat Quarter Shop blog, or if you subscribe to their YouTube channel, they'll be releasing all of the details on Friday, March 18th. I'll put a link in the show notes to anything you need to know. All right, let's talk quilting. Well, besides my exciting layer cake project, I am crawling along on my scrap quilt project. I believe it's called Sunshine and Shadows. So it is a 12-block quilt. For those of you keeping score, every block uses 12 different fabrics in one color, which is, it was kind of an exercise in color theory here. So like if you're doing orange, you don't want orange that's, you have oranges that veer more towards the yellow or more towards the red, and you want them to all be harmonious in your block. And it really revealed some holes in my stash. I think I talked last time about I reached out to my friend Frances because I basically don't have orange or purple in my stash. It turns out once I got, she very nicely sent me a bunch of like 6-inch squares. That's all you need of each of these fabrics, which is why it's so perfect for just pulling out of your stash as opposed to even buying a fat quarter is way overkill here. So once I pulled hers out and some of them weren't working, and I looked at mine, it turns out I had more orange than I realized. I basically had 2 purples were the only thing, and they were from, there were batiks that were kind of in a separate section of my stash. So I definitely need to, when I shop, I think I need to fill some of these gaps of mine. But where the real gap showed up is, so now I've got 11 blocks out of 12 done. I have 5 warm and 5 cool blocks. And so that's 10, and I have 1 sort of a light gray. And so I was just going to kind of reassess when I got to the end and go, okay, well, what am I missing? Well, I'm not really missing. I've already got 2 tones of blue and 2 tones of green and 2 tones, there's a red and a pink. And so what I really kind of want to do is a black and white block, or a very dark gray. Kind of a mix of maybe, gray and black, but not super strong, because the only real strong block is I have a navy. So guess what? I don't have a single piece of black fabric in my stash. Is that ridiculous? I know I used to, and I think I used a lot. I don't think I ever had a lot, but I take that back. I've got some black solid, but I don't want to use that. I used, I think, most of my cuter black fabric when I was making masks because, it seems like men all wanted the black masks, right? So, so I thought, okay, I'll just go shop. And then I realized that it would be 3 yards of fabric if I just went and bought fat quarters. And that, it defies what I want to do with this quilt, which was supposed to be based on my stash or begged from friends. So clearly I'm going to have to start begging from friends. This is where you really wish you knew more people who sewed in real life. I will definitely appeal to my friend Minky, but I got to be honest, I don't think Minky has a lot. Black's not really her vibe. Navy, yes. So anyways, I'm going to beg and borrow. I was going to say beg, borrow, and steal. I promise that I won't actually borrow or steal because, I'm just going to beg. So that is on hold until I rustle up 12 pieces of black or gray fabric. But that has been a very fun pattern to do. Again, it's from Quilts for Scrap Lovers. What else has been going on? Minky and I, that's Minky Kim. She is Zeriano online. As you know, she's a pattern designer. She has a fabulous YouTube channel. She is not only a pattern designer but a fabric designer. And so she had a quilt she wanted to take a picture of her upcoming line. So we headed out one day, which I missed doing this during the pandemic, is us being able to go around and take quilt photos. So I finally photographed my finished handpiece quilt-along quilt and my finished Cabin Valley quilt. And I still need to edit those pictures. I don't know what's taking me so long, but I'll get those posted as well. But I always like having that, final documentation of each quilt. I should do a better job of having one folder where I have a picture of each of my quilts. I organize my all my photos by month and year, but that means I really have to dig to find them. So anyways, I'll be posting those soon. And it's always such fun to head over to Old Town Moore Park and take those photos with Minky. I have a new product that I want to tell you about. It is a new cutting mat that I received, and it is from a company called EcoPeco. That's EcoPeco. And they reached out to me to try one of their cutting mats, and I am in love. First of all, it's always so nice to replace your cutting mat every once in a while, or to be able to push two together to have a really large cutting space, which is what I have right now. Their cutting mats are made from polypropylene, which is completely non-toxic. They're 100% recyclable, and they are PVC and BPA free. As I said, they're non-toxic. They are odorless when it comes out of the box. There's no off-gassing or anything like that. Most cutting mats are made from a hard core, and then on each side is PVC. And PVC is a known carcinogen, so it's best to stay away from it if you can. But their cutting mats are, they have 5 layers. They're obviously self-healing, and they're double-sided, which I love. They come in 3 colors. There's a blue, a green, and a brown, and one is a darker of the color, like a darker blue, and the other is a lighter blue. And I personally love this because it gives you the contrast you need. Sometimes it's hard to cut a dark fabric on a darker cutting mat. So you just flip it over to the light side and you can really get that contrast you need to make an accurate cut. So I absolutely love that. They work beautifully. I love, a blue is my signature color. So I love the 2 colors of blue that mine is in. They come in 3 sizes. Obviously, I always feel the bigger the better, right? So I have a 24 by 36, and I love it. I think that is as a quilter, if you have the space, that is the size to get. But it also comes 18 by 27, 12 by 18, so whatever size you need. And this is also cool. There are versions that are inches and versions that are metric. So that is great. So it, appeals to everyone there. If you also use your cutting mat for more than cutting fabric, if you paper craft or just need to use it for cutting paper, what's kind of cool is they have markings for all the usual paper sizes. So in the US here, there's letter and legal, and then there's also, A2, 3, A4, A5, all those kind of different things. If you are, making a newsletter or whatever, any kind of paper crafting thing that you do. So that is I thought that was kind of a very cool thing. I have been putting it through its paces for the last couple weeks, and I could not be happier. Now, they have generously offered a 10% discount to you guys if you use the code EcoPeco10. So that's EcoPco 10. And you may want to check them out on Instagram as they are EcoPco Art. So EcoPco Art, EcoPco Art. And I think you'll be really happy. Before we leave quilting, I realized something recently that I wanted to share with you. I think I mentioned that I was, as a 100-day project, I was going to do Zentangle, which is this style of doodling, which I still want to really get into, but haven't. But one of the things that I realized, so you kind of make yourself I don't know, I'm looking at my hands. It's something about like a 3.5-inch square that you draw, and then you create a few these sort of wavy guiding lines, and you do different types of doodling in each of the sections that are created, and then you can go back and shade them and things like that. So as I'm doing this, and it's not a big area, right? I realize that I do not have the patience to do this. It's supposed to be slow and meditative, right? And you're kind of paying attention, not in a stressful way, but you should be like trying to make those circles round, for instance, as you're doing them. I'm drawing. Can you see how I'm drawing right now? And I realized that, after about, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds, I start going faster and faster, and things get sloppier and sloppier, and then I'm never really happy with the results. And I've realized that is my exact problem with free motion quilting, is that, I will start off, especially it's like doing something like swirls, which I find, I know everybody can do them. I find them very stressful because you have to pay attention and be patient and do them a little slower than you think in order to keep those lines sort of equidistant from each other, because that's when they look neat. And, we're not going for perfection here, but mine can really go off the rails. And I realized that the patience of not speeding up but keeping a steady pace in order to to have the results that I want is something that I really, it's a muscle I need to exercise. And I started thinking about that during QuiltCon, and I felt like there was a lot of really intricate quilting at QuiltCon. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I see that is, oh my gosh, I don't have the patience for that. And that is very true. But that doesn't mean that I can't work on it. So I'm curious if you have that issue, is that, when you have a long way to go, sometimes I rush the process, and I shouldn't rush the whole thing about art and quilting and crafting is to enjoy the journey, to enjoy the process, and not just be done. It's not about the end product. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you just got to knock it out. But anyways, I just realized that was this, I don't know, I hate to call it a character flaw. It's something that I need to work on, to just get into the moment. There's no need to rush. I'm not, Zen-tangling, because I need to knock 100 of these out to sell. I'm doing it for myself. And that is what, when you do those kind of meditative practices, sometimes it reveals things about yourself. And that's what I found out. And I'm curious if you guys think that maybe that if you are similar in that, or if your process has revealed anything to you that you're like, oh, that's the thing that I need to work on. I'd be curious to hear. Let's move on and talk about books. I believe last episode I told you that I was reading this book called The Huntress by Kate Quinn. If you want to hear more about that, I won't repeat here, but it's in the last episode. But it's basically I'm not going to repeat, but let me tell you what it's about. It's a post-World War II era book about some people who are hunting down, Nazi killers. And they're, in this particular instance, they're looking for this woman they call the Huntress. And I was really enjoying it last time I talked to you, but I finished it, and it was such a good book. I cannot recommend it more highly. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy everything that Kate Quinn writes, and so that's definitely an author that I will keep up on whatever new books comes out when she comes out with. I re-listened to, and if you know me, in my obsession with Louise Penny, I re-listened to Glass Houses. Sometimes I download these Louise Penny books because they help me get to sleep. I love the readers, both the Robert Batham, he did the first ones, and then I can't remember the guy that does the ones now because Robert Batham died, but I know some people don't like the second reader. I think the second reader is amazing. They're just a little bit different, but they both have these just these qualities to their voice that I just love, and it really helps me get to sleep. So this is what happens: is I download a book that I already know, like Glass Houses, but I haven't listened to for a long time, and I just hear it in parts as I'm trying to go to sleep over a week, and then I'm like, you know what? I just need to start this book over for real, and that's what I did, and that is the book where things just really, some things really happen that takes the story arc in a new direction. And so that's like the one where things start to pivot. Like it's like Harry Potter 4 where things start to pivot. So I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, after that one, I just had to start listening to the next one. And that is the way I do things. So that one's called Kingdom of the Blind. Yeah, you know me. I'm obsessed with Louise Penny books. The other thing I've been reading, so I always have a book that I'm reading like on my Kindle and then I'm listening to. And so the book that I'm reading now is Friendship Album 1933. Now, you may know this as an audio podcast from my friend Frances Dowell over at the Quilt Fiction Podcast. I am reading the print version, which is not available to the public yet, but that's another book, honestly, that if I need to go to sleep, sometimes Frances's voice is absolutely mesmerizing. I would listen to her read the phone book, so that's a good one. So what you should do is, if you have never listened to Friendship Album 1933, I will put a link in the show notes. Go over to the Quilt Fiction Podcast. It's the season 1 of that podcast. Season 2 is Frances reading Aunt Jane of Kentucky, which is not her work, but is a very lovely, fun book that is, quilting adjacent. But Friendship Album 1933 is about a group of women in a quilting bee in the, Depression era. It's a very unlikely group of women that come together to have a quilting bee in general, but specifically working on quilts for the Sears quilting contest for the World's Fair. And every one of those characters is absolutely alive in my mind. Everything that one of the characters, her name is Eula. Everything that she makes, she's got this amazing chocolate cake, and she makes great coffee. It just makes me want to dive into the pages of the book and join this quilting bee, mostly just so that I can eat all the delicious treats that they talk about. But so I highly recommend that if you have never listened to it. And it's funny, I'm reading it as a PDF on my iPad, and I have to say that it's making me appreciate my Kindle with all its ways of being anti-glare and e-ink. I think it's really easier I'm realizing it's easier on my eyes to read on my Kindle than on my iPad. And I know I could have put it on my Kindle, but there were some technological difficulties there. But yeah, so I'm still totally loving my Kindle Oasis, which is just making me want to read more, Frank. That's really it book-wise this time around. I spent a lot of time looking through this coffee table book, A Place to Call Home, so that has kind of slowed me down from my regular reading. As far as TV goes, I think I mentioned last time that we had started watching Yellowstone, and it was really violent, and there was a lot of curse words, and it was kind of gory. I wasn't really sure I was going to get into it. Well, you know what? I got into it anyway. And there are 3 seasons. Actually, there's 4 seasons, but I'm watching it on Peacock as a streaming service, and there's only 3 seasons there, and they're only 10 episodes each. So we're kind of cruising right through those. We're almost done with season 3, and now we have to keep Peacock for another month because season 4 drops on March 28th. But I am enjoying that. I gave up on Succession and Billions, which in some ways are similar shows. This is just more takes place on a ranch in Montana, so it's a different setting, but it's got very rich people and thinking about the next generation and trying to hold on to an obscene amount of land in Montana. It's got Kevin Costner, who is very good in it. I didn't really used to think that Kevin Costner was a very good actor, but he's actually quite good in this, and I would like to have every jacket and vest that he wears on that show. Would love to have in my closet. Apparently Montana is very cold. I would never wear any of them here. But so we've been enjoying that. I didn't think that I would get into it, but I did. Now the other show, and again, this has got some adult content sort of, so beware. Also on Peacock is I think it is called Carol versus Joe, and it's a dramatization of the Tiger King thing. Now, I never really watched the Tiger King when it came out at the beginning of the pandemic. Other members of my family did. It was not very interesting to me. I was doing other things. I did pop in on an episode or two, so I knew what it was about. But if you were like living under a rock in March and April 2020, Joe Exotic had this kind of wild animal show with a lot of tigers and lots of different types of animals. And then Carol Baskin had a big cat rescue, and she was basically going after all these people, not just Joe, but lots of people that she felt were harming animals in, their pursuit of the almighty dollar in these kind of zoos and shows. And eventually Joe put out a hit on her, and he is in prison right now. I think he's still in prison. Not 100% sure. But anyway, so it is a dramatization of their story. And Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live plays Carol Baskin. She's quite good. And so it's kind of funny and weird. And so we're kind of just getting a bit of a kick out of that. But next up, as soon as we're done with that, we are ditching Peacock and getting Paramount Plus because the new season of Discovery has been out, the Star Trek, in the Star Trek genre, and Picard. My friend Patty over at Elm Street Quilts said she started Picard and that it's amazing, and I'm very excited about that. Now, interesting, also on Paramount Plus is a show called 1883, which apparently is the prequel to Yellowstone. So it's how they got the big Yellowstone ranch. And I have a friend who says that it's actually way better than Yellowstone. So we'll have to check that out as well. So I'm always kind of excited when I'm into a show and then I know I've got some shows lined up. I don't know if you're like that, but I like to know. I'm very routine oriented that way. At this point, I'd like to say thank you to SilkSaunder for being a sponsor of the podcast. SilkSaunder is a monthly journal subscription that I absolutely love. Each month has a different theme and color scheme. March, my birthday month, is Wonder. That's the theme. And there are prompts and coloring pages and all things like this that will help you explore the theme of wonder in your life. And what I love about the SilkSaunder journal system is that it has the normal things of kind of like a planner. It's got a monthly layout. It has weekly layouts. It has places where you can do gratitude journaling and to-do lists and things like that. And those are all habit trackers. Those are all things that are in every single month. But then in addition to that, there are pages that explore different journal prompts. There's plenty of empty space for you to do your own freeform journaling. There are pages that leave you room to explore different prompts, and definitely many pages to help you keep track of the things in your life that matter: your mood, your sleep, habits, your spending, things like that. And if you don't want to track your spending, then you can, track something else. You can track your movement. You can completely personalize it to work for you. And that is one of the things that I think is amazing about it. But the number one thing that I love about it is that you get a new one every month. You get a fresh start every month. So if you start the month off strong and kind of waver in the middle and then pick it up at the end, you don't feel bad about that. You're like, that was just what this month is. This journal tells the story of what was happening in my life, even if what was happening is that I fell off the wagon for a while. And then you get a fresh start the next month. I definitely feel the benefit of it most when I make it part of my morning routine where I get into it every day. I love sitting down on Sundays and laying out the week of how I want it to be, tackling my big 3 goals and laying out a cleaning schedule and an exercise schedule, and then going back and checking those things off, because there's nothing I love more than checking things off of a list. So definitely check it out. You can try it for 1 month. You can do a quarterly subscription, or the best deal obviously is the annual subscription. You can get 15% off any type of subscription with the code SHE15. So that's Simple Handmade Everyday 15. And I will put a link in the show notes for you. I've got a few other sort of homemaking and gardening things to round out the podcast. One thing that my husband and I, which by the way, we have the same birthday. It's a very strange thing. So we treated ourselves this year to a pizza stone and pizza peel. I love making homemade pizza, and I've made it for years, and I love that you can control the ingredients. It's very inexpensive. The kids love it. But I always felt that the one weak point of homemade pizza made on a baking sheet, or I even had a pizza pan that has these holes in it, was that the crust was never crispy on the bottom. It was always just a little bit soggy. And so we'd had pizza stones in the past. I've had probably 2, and they always cracked, and I can't explain why, but I was ready to take a chance again. So we bought a 16-inch pizza stone. I'll put a link in the show notes to the one that we got. 16 inches barely fits in my oven. So you definitely have to measure that. And then a pizza peel, which is just basically like a wooden cutting board with a big handle and a beveled edge so that you can slide things off and on. You build the pizza on the peel, put some cornmeal on the bottom, you put cornmeal on the pizza stone. You keep the pizza stone in the oven. It's in our bottom oven. I'm keeping it there all the time. You turn up the temp to 500 degrees and then slide the pizza that you've built on the peel right onto the pizza stone. And oh my goodness, it came out amazing. Super crispy crust. It just like solved every problem I had. We made 2 kinds of pizzas, which was a little bit tricky. That's one of the reasons I didn't do this when we have kids around, is because I make 3 pizzas at a time, and you can't do that unless you want 3 pizza peels, and that gets a little pricey. So what we did here is while that one was cooking in the oven on a wooden cutting board, I kind of treated it like a peel. Put the cornmeal down, built the pizza there, and then when we took the one pizza out, we were able to slide it from the cutting board onto the pizza stone, and it did not work as well as from the peel, but it's doable. But the first pizza we made was I don't know where I got this recipe. Now it's just more of an idea, but it is I make a homemade pizza dough, and then you put pesto all over the pizza, and then goat cheese and Kalamata olives. And I've forgotten how good that pizza is. It was very good. And then my normal pizza, I just do a homemade pizza dough, pizza sauce, which is just tomato sauce with some Italian spices and a little salt and pepper and a tiny smidge of sugar to take the edge off. Super easy. And then just, mozzarella cheese and veggies and things like that. So they both came out amazing. So the boys are coming home this weekend, and I can't wait to try it out on them. But I feel like at my age here, I'm ready to kind of take things to the next level. Let me elevate. I've been cooking mediocre pizza for years. Let me see if, I've got the time and space and money. I can kind of improve that. And it's gotten us really excited about pizza again. So that's been really, really fun to take that up a notch. So now that we are in mid-March, are you guys getting the itch to garden? I know that even, in places where it's cold, the snow's starting to melt. But it's been very nice here in California. And I finally got my cutting garden seeds in the ground. I had started seeds outside the ground because we knew we were getting this dog. So what I have are these peat pots that basically look like an ice cube tray. And I started, what was the total? 8 varieties of seeds, 10 each, so 80 seeds. And so I kept them out of the ground for the first week because the dog was new and we weren't sure. I didn't want to get mad at a new dog for running into the garden. So we kept them out, and now we have a little 14-inch kind of wire fencing around it. It was a psychological barrier, really, more than anything, that is not working anymore because now he's learned he can jump over it. But anyways, so last weekend I cut each of those little peat pots apart and planted out to the garden. We're going to put in a soaker hose system this weekend. And so it's been about 10 days since I planted the seeds, since I started the seeds, and the zinnias are coming up wonderfully. The zinnias and the cosmos are doing great. Nothing else is coming up, and I'm going to be super bummed if these seeds don't come up. But if this works, this is going to be the most cost-efficient way to create a cutting garden. And I'm so excited about it. And I haven't planted out the whole garden because a month from now, I want to start sort of a second wave so that I can have blooms for, further into the year. So now that that's kind of in place and I'm just watering those little seedlings every day, this has inspired me to really get going on other areas of the yard. And I just love being outside and with my fingers in the dirt. So I hope that if gardening is your thing, I hope it warms up. And are you making plans? I'm kind of curious about that. So before I go, I wanted to thank Farm Wife 4 for leaving a wonderful review. It is so fun to read these, and I just so appreciate it. So if you feel so inclined, pop over to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts and rate and review the podcast. It helps people like you find it. And as always, if you have a friend or somebody that you think would, like this type of content, feel free to share. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope to get back on a solid every other week recording schedule. You can find me online at my blog, Simple Handmade Everyday, on Instagram as Kristen Esser, and please consider joining the Simple Handmade Everyday private Facebook group so that we can keep the conversation going. See you next time.